check YouTube out, see if the stream comes up. It's starting. I'm gonna get this figured out, man. I really am. Okay, we're live on YouTube with the bumper. So what I need to do is get everything set. Well, good evening and welcome to PJNET Live on Friday night. You know, every night's a great night at PJNET, but I really enjoy Friday night. And I want to say a tip of the hat and a thank you to Hazards4. He is our video host on Friday night, and he has a style of his own. It is refreshing, it is calming, and you know, sometimes I think we all could use a little bit of that. Welcome to it. We're experimenting as we can, I should say we are continuing to experiment with some new sets, and we're pretty happy with this one. And I think, well, we'd like your feedback a little bit later on. We have some surprises in the works, and in fact, we'll engage one of those right about now. And let me give this a test drive, and tell me what you think. Here we go. You ready? Let's bring the monitors down, and at that point we'll bring in, well, what I meant to bring in was that. Okay, we do have Roger, American Refugee, in the green room. He has, you know, it was only a week or so ago, he got a new camera. And so now, not only does he have a new camera, he has a new tripod. So you're not going to break this one, Roger?
I'm not going to break this one. I'm determined to not break this tripod. By next week, maybe we'll have a little bit of a better background, a little bit better of a lighting situation. I'm working on that.
Well, good, good. But you got your new phone, you got a new tripod. Next week we'll go for a new background. Things just keep getting better and better and better. Glad
they
to hear
do.
it.
They do.
Now
they
we're not going to go 50 minutes tonight, folks. Just a heads up.
No, we won't.
But just briefly, last week we introduced, or I should say, American Refugee Roger, introduced some topics that if we are to turn things around in this country, we are going to have to address those topics. And actually, we had a discussion earlier this week, you know, Roger, and I've said that our problems are spiritual, so we're going to include the spiritual, but did we decide we're going to do that one last?
That's going to be the last thing, quite simply because, quite simply because nothing else will work. It's the foundation in the end, so it needed to either go first or last, and we decided to do it last.
All right, so I don't have any notes tonight. What do we talked about education. Are we going to talk about media?
We're going to roll with the political tonight. We're going to roll with the political tonight, because yeah, it is my argument again that we're living in post-constitutional America, and that we need to accept that, and that we are at war to resurrect our country, and that there are some different areas we needed to focus on. You mentioned the spiritual, you mentioned the educational. We're going to talk some language, borders, and culture. But tonight we're going to talk the political, because a part of this fight is purely political and saving the country. And so that's where I want to go tonight, is the political. Now, thesis one, Mark, on the political, is that for the time being and until 2020, now this may change in 2020, the landscape will change in 2020, but until 2020, we have to accept something. We have to accept that even though the Republican Party is not what we want it to be, it is something that we can use, and the Democratic Party is at this time our enemy. And so, in my opinion, in between now and 2020, the first thing that we have to do is we have to reelect Donald Trump president, who's not perfect, but we need to reelect the man president. We need the Republicans to hold the Senate, even though I'd be the first one to agree with you. In many ways, they don't deserve to, but they're better than the Democrats. Then, they're basically, we have what team we have. You don't always get to pick your team, particularly when you're a new coach. When a new coach gets hired, he has a terrible team.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I always like to talk about analogies in football. But in where I went to school, we only had 14 players. Now, if you have a large number of players, a more ideal situation, you find the right man for the job. But if you have a small number of players, you've got to find the right job for the man. And and so I think we're kind of in a situation where we've got to go with the players on the field.
And there's something Sean Payton says a lot, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, who I think is probably the second best head coach in football. And I hate to say second best, but at this point, there's just no taking it away from Bill Belichick. Don't really like the man's personality. Don't like a lot about the man. But Sean Payton always tells his scouts, I don't want to hear what somebody can't do. I want to hear what they can do. Tell me what this person can do. Okay. Yes, because I will figure out how to use this person for what they can do. And in politics, we need to look at a guy like a Lindsey Graham, who's far from perfect, but say, okay, what can Lindsey Graham do for us? Where is Lindsey Graham on our side? Where can we prop him up? And then where is he reachable? Where can we get to him and convince him? Okay. Don't worry about where he's against us right now. Hey, maybe later on down the road, there may be a chance to replace him with somebody better. But for now, Lindsey Graham is who we have in the Senate. Mitt Romney is who we have in the Senate. Mitt Romney's probably the worst, in my opinion, right now, other than maybe Murkowski of Alaska, that are in the Senate. But we have got to accept that we're working with the Republican Senate. Now is not the time for internal wars. Now, Mark, it may be right after 2020. It may be time to say, okay, let's get rid of some of these bums. Let's replace some of these guys for 2022. But right now, we have a major election coming up in 2 years. And I just think we've got to be unified. We've got to reelect Trump. We've got to hold the Senate. And we've got to do our absolute best to take the House.
Okay, now, I think you have a good point of strategy, but one of the things that we have worked on is, we want to be principled. And if you're not principled, I mean, you need principles. The problem with having principles, I know some people who, oath keepers.
Yeah.
Alan West did one vote somewhere, probably for the Patriot Act, and the problem with being a principled conservative is when one of those principles that you hold dear gets, I hate to say violated, but one wrong vote, so we throw that one under the bus, and then the next guy comes along, we throw him under the bus or her under the bus. It's hard to achieve unification among such principled politicographics as conservative and or libertarian people. What do you think? Politics
is war, and that's what we have to accept. We can be as principled as we want to be in our ethics and in the cultural issues and on these different issues that we're going to fight for, but we're at war, literally, and the other side doesn't have ethics and doesn't play by the rules.
But they're very unified, aren't they?
They're very unified, and they don't have ethics and they don't play by the rules.
Yeah, they don't believe in anything, so it's easy to be unified. They don't have the problem we have.
Look, let's talk about that in terms of what happened in the this week, because this week, the first thing that happened is that Congress overrode Donald Trump's, basically voted down Donald Trump's emergency order. Said, no, we vote this down. There's no emergency. House passed the bill passed the House, bill passed the Senate. Donald Trump vetoed that bill today. They will not have enough votes to override his veto, so it'll go to the courts now, of course. Mark, 12 Republicans in the Senate voted against Donald Trump on this issue,
including Mike Lee.
Including Mike Lee. And look who did not, Ted Cruz. two favorite senators ended up on opposite sides.
You know, you can usually count on Lee and Cruz voting the same way.
They did not. Okay, Lee and Paul did, and Cruz voted differently. And then, other than that, it was more the left-wing Republicans that abandoned. But why did you have the libertarian and the ultra-conservative Lee? On pure principles, on pure constitutional issues, they made the call that they think that this constitutionally is the wrong move for Donald Trump to make. I'm going to tell you something, though, Mark. Number one, that is a tough call, okay? Because, you know, we're not just looking at the Constitution now. We're looking at a law that Congress passed in the 1970s that has already been amended by the courts, but in being amended by the courts, survived court challenges that basically gave presidents the right to do just this. Okay, so Congress has already given away some of their power that was given to them constitutionally a long time ago legislatively. And while it's a close call, so I'm not going to get angry at people either way. Also, my point is we can't be the only ones playing by the rules anymore. This is post-constitutional America. In my opinion, one of the things we have to do to get that back is to secure the border. So for that reason, I support Trump in this, and I want him to do anything he can possibly do to secure the border.
Well, let me rewind the tape a little bit, because a week or two ago, one of the comments that you made, and I was actually thinking about this as I was mowing the grass today, we have a very, very polarized political landscape right now. Neither side is going to persuade the other. There is almost no possibility of compromise. There is almost no possibility of a negotiated settlement. Therefore, you have gridlock. And a week ago you said the founding fathers kind of foresaw that. And when there's when you have this gridlock, all the sides are saying we can't get our way, so they begin to look at ways to grab power to impose their policy in spite of the gridlock. Okay, and that is essentially what President Trump did. Okay, he found a legal theory by which he could push his agenda forward.
And the Democrats were not upset when Obama basically was using the same theory to try to put in DACA and
sure,
and everything else. Yeah, exactly.
But the play is in motion, because as soon as Trump played his card, guess what Congress did? Played their card. And your comment a week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, was, when there's gridlock, there should be gridlock. We are not unified. There is not consensus. Maybe the best thing to do is nothing. So it's easy to complain that nothing's being done. We're in gridlock, but at the same time, we're not all on the same page. And until we find something to unify against.
Yeah, gridlock is always better than moving in the wrong direction. Okay. It's always better than going backwards. You're better off being stuck in traffic than being in reverse, going away from home. And so gridlock is better in that sense. But yes, it's one of the reasons why we have to win this political argument, okay, on all these fronts. So not only do we have to reelect Trump, and not only do we have to keep a Republican, Senate and hopefully win the House, which is why I don't want people going out and primarying the 12 people, who voted against Trump on this right now. But we also have to apply political pressure to Trump and stick with the people that are applying political pressure to Trump and not just kick his butt. Look, at the same time as I'm saying, okay, we need to re-elect Trump, I'm not hating on Ann Coulter, okay? Ann Coulter is doing everything she can from her loudmouth way that she does things to try and push Trump in a direction. And so when Trump says things like finish building the wall, she writes a column that says, please give us the longitude and latitudinal coordinates of any new wall that has been built in your administration. Okay. She goes there. I can tell you that while Trump has great support still from members of ICE and from members of Border Patrol, it's less than it was. And you know why it's less than it was? Because nothing's changed. Okay, that's the truth. They're still catch and release. There's been some previously agreed to renovated fencing and replacement border that's happened, but nothing has changed. Now, people can sit there and they can say, "Oh, that's not Trump's fault. He's fighting for it and he's being opposed." Well, we always knew he would be opposed. Okay, but some people voted for Trump as the master negotiator. Some people voted for Trump as Trump the strong man. Well, the master negotiator or the strong man gets crap done. Okay. And right now, Mark, I have a question in my mind about, now, God bless Donald Trump on being pro-life. And you know what? Not only has he kept his word there, I actually am starting to see some signs that he's really changed his mind on that issue. We'll talk about that another day. But I actually think that Donald Trump's association with conservatives and Christians is in some areas starting to rub off on him a little bit. I'm seeing some signs of that.
I hope
I hope I am too. Minimally, though, he's kept his word and said, "Okay, I have to be the most pro-life president there's ever been. I got to keep this base happy." So he's done that. What worries me is this. He might be more than willing to be seen as the guy who's doing everything he can to build the wall, okay, but who's just being stopped, by the stupid swamp, okay. And the truth is
you can't give him a pass on that, because he campaigned that he was going to drain the swamp. So it's not like he got up there and say, I ran into something I didn't anticipate.
Exactly.
And I could be very critical of his methodology of draining the swamp, is taking them out of Congress and putting them in his own administration. I don't know if that's draining the swamp or not. That's creating a new one. Let me revisit something you said earlier. When you say that Donald is, you made a good point. He's a bully. He's a tough guy. And he's a good negotiator. The carrot and the stick come to mind. Good combination. But I remember in a presidential debate long ago when Michelle Bachmann was running. And this took me back to that scene, and it's very vivid in my mind, because there were still about 7 or 8 candidates in the race, including Michelle Bachmann. And of course, she was speaking, say, I fought for this, and I fought for this, and I fought for this, and, really, really connecting with her base. Well, someone I'm not particularly fond of, Rob Portman, said he was next. And said, "You're right, Michelle, you have fought for all those things, and you've lost every fight. You haven't passed a single piece of legislation."
Right.
That was,
and you know what?
Well, that hit hard.
Donald Trump, in my opinion, has won when he's really decided to go to the mat. And it makes me concerned that he's only pretending to go to the mat on the border. Okay.
Well, so he's one where he has unilateral authority to act. He has he alone, the president alone, nominates Supreme Court justices. He decides where the U.S. Embassy is. On those areas where he takes the initiative, now obviously there are some checks and balances, but
he got a tax cut through. That was in trouble. He bullied it through.
Yeah.
He bullied and compromised and got a tax cut through. He placed a lot of pressure on senators to not abandon his Supreme Court pick when there was the character assassination going on. Look, this is how hardcore I want to see him go on the wall. I think he needs to order the Army Corps of Engineers to start building the wall. Okay, and when some liberal court makes a ruling and says, no, we're issuing a stay, I believe that Donald Trump needs to get in front of the camera and say, the court does not have jurisdiction on this. I do, as the commander-in-chief.
Well, as a matter of fact, the court, the court can't make
no power.
Law. Right. The court can't make a law.
Its own. Here's what people don't realize. The court has no power to enforce its decrees. They make decrees but have no power to enforce it. Okay, the way our system works is this. It is assumed that generally the other branches of government will enforce the court's decrees. If the court make a decree that the other branches of government decide are unconstitutional, and then they're so upset by it that they want to stand up, there's a remedy for that. You have a showdown. Okay, basically, if the president says no to the court and the court's saying one thing and the president is saying another, two things happen. One, Congress can decide whether or not they're going to impeach the president, and the Senate can decide whether or not they're going to convict the president. The other side of it is we're about to have a new presidential election coming up, and the public can punish the president and vote him out of office. Okay, so that's how these things are supposed to get fixed. They're supposed to get fixed by the political process. You know, we could have had a similar situation in Florida, where imagine if the Supreme Court had not done exactly what they did. And imagine if the Supreme Court of Florida had decided basically, no, Gore won the election, but the state legislature in Florida had said, you have no power here. Bush won the election, and you had two different sets of electors showing up at the election. By the way, other presidents have simply suspended parts of the Constitution before when they've decided it was to the absolutely extreme point where the survival of the nation was necessary. Lincoln did it during the Civil War with habeas corpus, and so it has happened before. So
I think we're in a new. I don't want to use that phrase. Look at the situation when there is an actual state of war against another sovereign nation, and you have what I call a set piece battle. You've got an army, you've got artillery, and you've got war. Right. It's a whole lot easier to say we're in a state of war because we are. Mm-hmm. Bullets are going back and forth against organized, institutionalized armies acting on behalf of sovereign nations. Okay, well, the mm-hmm. first, now Vietnam came along, and look at what happened after World War II. We had Korea, where it's not really a war; it's a police action. See, so mm-hmm. it's not war anymore. Then came Vietnam, right. which was never a war, but it was kind of police action and containing communism. And then we had mm-hmm. we're at war against this nebulous idea of terrorism, mm-hmm. and now we're mm-hmm. at war against this nebulous, ethereal idea of there's what constitutes an invasion of immigration. It's getting mm-hmm. Can you see where it's getting hard to sell the idea that this is a national emergency?
Oh, I can see where it's getting hard to sell the idea, but here's my point though, is that right now we happen to be talking about the border with this, but when you look at everything from what's going on in the states now that are trying to expand abortion in the states because they're afraid of what might happen with Roe v. Wade, so they're trying to lock things in and they're trying to expand it. You look at everything that's happening on all of the other fronts. Mark, the evidence we need to say that we're at war is to just look at how different this country is from even just 15 years ago. Okay? The things that would have been unthinkable even just 15 years ago. It's just absolutely insane. And so, yeah, it always is a tough sell, but that's the position that I take, is that we need to take it to the mat. And it's not just about reelecting Trump. It's not just about putting pressure on Trump, because I want Trump to start building the wall. Like, I don't want him to say I'm putting forth the statement. I want him to literally just start doing it. Force your hand to let Congress go ahead and impeach you. The Senate's not going to convict you, and I personally think you'll get reelected. Okay, that's actually where I want him to go with this. But it's not just about that, Mark. On the political front, we have got to, first of all, there's some awfully good patriots that are not in politics that need to go into politics. And I'm not just talking about running for Senate or running for Congress. I'm talking about running for school board. I'm talking about running for a town council. I'm talking about running for state, to be a state legislator. We have got to get, as conservatives, politically involved. School boards are a really, really important place to get involved. We're going to talk about education and a whole other issue, but a part of the educational issue is still political, because you've got to have the right people in the state legislatures and you've got to have the right people in the school boards. Okay, in order to even begin to do anything to try and either fix or combat the schools. Now, of course, there'll be a lot of things outside of government that we'll talk about with education, but that's political too, Mark. Mark, lobbying the state of Texas to protect their border is political. Getting people in Texas, getting conservatives in Texas to lobby their governor and to lobby their state legislatures to start to build areas of barrier themselves as a state government. California will obviously refuse to do it. You might be able to have some luck in Arizona. Okay, so these are all political moves that we need to be making. As well, and we need to be doing it. Just absolutely as quickly as possible. One of the things that stinks, Mark, about my current setup. One area of technology I need to improve on.
Tell me.
I need a little. I need a better system for taking notes. And
here, let's use that. Take your time, folks. Let me give you a quick update while Refugee refreshes his contemporaneous memory. Okay, we are in high gear, in full motion here, accelerating, making changes and improvements every day. Here, but we also today got some new gear. Folks, this is the camera that I spoke of last night. Okay, this is the baby brother to the camera that's being used right now in our studio. And what's kind of neat is we have 3 of them. It is going to be a late night at PJNET tonight. And one other thing. So we'll have, get this, 4 cameras rolling in Montgomery, weather permitting.
There you go, Mark.
Remember that camera that I said I was going to send it back? Sunbelt Girl, it's great to have a collaborator, especially someone as faithful as Sunbelt Girl, but also because she's a female. I found a problem with this camera and I said it's going back, but she says, well, just hang on, wait. Well, we can repurpose this. This is going in the hands of my daughter. So while the 4 fixed cameras will be rolling, she can be taking this camera out and circulating, getting what we call B-roll. Okay, we're back.
That's really cool, Mark. Yeah. That's really cool. Mark, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Just straight up.
Straight up.
You ever consider seeking minor political office?
Yes.
Because you are the type of person that I would love to see running for state legislature. And getting involved in the process, and more of us need to do it. One of the reasons that we lose the political battle, I think sometimes, is because just look at the different personalities on liberals and conservatives and what it pushes them towards. Liberals tend to want to become teachers or grab for power or go into the entertainment industry. Conservatives tend to want to run businesses, run their families, run their churches. Okay. And
we're kind of community organizers.
Yeah. We've ceded too much.
Except we actually do
too much to the liberals. Yeah. We actually do it as opposed to talking about it. Oh, and one thing I want to bring up, Beto O'Rourke this week. And I mentioned that this was coming, and I mentioned that the AOCs were already saying it, and so on and so forth. But you've got actual candidates, for the Democratic nomination now coming out and clearly stating their position that they got to take the White House, they got to take the Senate, and then as soon as they do that, they will have the Senate do away with the filibuster, and they will legislatively increase the size of the court from 9 to 13. I know I've said that before, but I want to drill that home to people because I've seen conservatives reacting on social media to Beto O'Rourke saying it was time to pack the courts and basically saying good luck on that. The next one to die is going to be Ginsburg. And we got these great young conservatives now because they've forgotten that the Constitution did not set down the number of Supreme Court justices. It just says that we shall have a Supreme Court. That is set down legislatively. And if the Democrats get to 51 in the Senate and decide to permanently kill the filibuster, a complete Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic White House will change the law. They will increase the number of Supreme Court justices to 13, and they will pack the court. And that's one of the reasons when you say, is it really war? okay, how important is this election? That's one of the reasons why the 2020 election is so important. But while I want to encourage everybody to get out and vote for Trump, again, I don't like the butt kissing, Mark. I don't like the people who turn on any conservative the instant that he criticizes Trump. No, Trump is, got his big boy pants on now. He's the president of the United States. He got into the political arena, and we need to hold him to his promises, hold him to his word. We need to praise him when he does the right thing and when he keeps his promises. And when he's dragging butt or on something, or just moving a little too slowly for our taste on something, we have to let him know. We just absolutely have to let him know, Mark. And that's why I don't get mad at Coulter, because look, there's a room for a Jeanine Pirro on Fox News, okay, who basically just always praises Trump. There's some room for that. That has some effect on him. When you always praise somebody, you can get to him. But there is some room for a conservative that sits there and says, how many miles of new border have been built? Okay. And where she's particularly holding his hand to the fire is when he tries to say things like, we need to finish building the wall.
Yeah. You
or
can't,
we're off
exactly.
to a great start.
Well, I think
we're
that
not
is,
in that area.
And this is not a new idea. That has historically been part of the legitimate role of the press, is to be a counterbalance, to criticize, and that's part of an enlightened government, not one that just propagandizes and soothsays their way. The court jesters, are not all a healthy part of a political process. So I'm like you. I grew up, when I went to college, I mean, one of the things that we learned was critical thinking and the scientific method, where questioning truth is encouraged, because if it's true, it will withstand and in fact be stronger after being questioned. If it is not true, it needs to be taken down as not true. So truth claim, I mean, that's a used car salesman. We need to finish the wall. That is right. Used car salesman talk.
It is. I
don't want a used car salesman in the White House. I want to hear the straight talk. And Donald Trump does not have a problem talking straight.
Not when he wants to. And not when he wants to. So, that's about what I've got for this week, Mark. Okay. We have to be politically engaged. Right now, don't go to war with the 12 Republicans that voted against this. Let them know you disagree with them, but don't go to war.
Don't throw them under the bus. Yeah,
don't throw them under the bus. Stay united. We need their help. And yes, vote to reelect Trump. Yes, praise Trump for being, and I never thought I would say this, the most pro-life president in the history of the United States, because he has governed that way. That is how he has governed. He has outdone Reagan. He has outdone George W. Bush. He truly, truly has. And, one of the reasons that we're about to close, but it's interesting. One of the things that I'm starting to see that make me think his mind are really changing is there's starting to be some reports coming out that are things that just happen to get seen kind of behind the scenes by one particular reporter that wasn't really out in the open, like him just chastising Chuck Schumer over New York's new abortion law. And being like, Chuck, how can you support that? And there used to be a Donald Trump that would say, hey, it's a terrible thing, but I'm from New York, And now he's more like, nah, this is just disgusting. It's not just a terrible thing. This is just too much. This is just too far. So I'm seeing some of that with Trump. And so I have some hope if we will do our work, but we have to stay engaged. We should all get in touch with, and it's not going to happen. The veto is not going to be overridden, but we should all get in touch with our congressmen and our senators and let us know where we stand. Let them know where we stand on protecting the border, and be prepared to beat back this absolutely insane group of Democrats. Mark, Joe Biden is like the far right wing of this group. And I never thought I would. I never thought I would think of Joe Biden
as
in
the
any way.
moderate. Yeah.
Right. No, I didn't. And you know, that's as conservative as it gets in this group. You've got the avowed socialist old man. You've got the kind of the white Obama in Beto. You've got the various, you've got the various women that are running, and they're all pretty hard left. I would say that maybe two of them are not to the left of Hillary Clinton in this upcoming election. So it's one we got to be prepared to win, Mark, and I know you'll do your part.
Let me summarize. One of the, Roger, fear-mongering is not what we do here. I was having a conversation with Sunbelt Girl. It's okay with me if PJNET never achieves the notoriety of the big shows out there, because one of the things that seems to be implicit in pushing it over that limit is fear-mongering and emotional drama. So I don't want to engage in fear-mongering, but I do want to summarize your point tonight. As a coach, if it's halftime and your team is behind, I have seen coaches give speeches that are absolutely stupid. He'll focus on the seniors and say, "Seniors, this is it. This is the last time you're going to walk out on that home field. This is your whole life. And for the rest of your life, if we don't get out here and win this game, you will be replaying this game in your mind the rest of..." Okay. Well, okay. The problem with that is you could lose. Now, if you do lose, how are you ever going to rally them back up? Because you just told them it's over. This is your whole life. Okay, yeah, so exactly. I want to caution you, me, and anybody else against fatalistic fear-mongering. We're at war. This is it. If the Democrats win, they are going to erase the republic. But I do want to emphasize what is at stake here, and you summarized it perfectly. If you get a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic presidency, they're going to erase the rules and rewrite them so that it's going to be a rigged game.
Just going to rewrite them. Totally rigged game.
And so that's what's at stake. I don't want to say that the republic is lost, but folks, we do need to understand that is what at stake. What is at stake, and that's why I think it's not hyperbole to say we're at war. We're not at armed insurrection here, but we have a clash of ideas that there is no middle ground. One side is going to win, the other side is going to lose. That's what's at stake, folks. Keep that in mind. Roger, appreciate it. Listen, let's just review. We have other institutions that we'll be looking at. Let's try to enumerate them.
Yeah, we're going to take a. We're going to take.
You're fine. Keep the camera right there. You're fine.
We're going to take a big look. Yeah, we're going to take a big look at what's going on in the culture wars in this country, the gender wars in this country, because that is all a part of what we've got to turn around. We're going to take a big look at education, and I'm working on that very hard right now, because I'm learning so much as I'm doing research into what we're going to have to do to really return civics education and proper civics education, and American history education and critical thinking, and how we're going to have to achieve those ideals. And we're going to have to get right spiritually for God to bless us, Mark. We have to. We have to get spiritually right as a country.
You are absolutely right, Roger. That is the bottom line. Always a pleasure, my man, seeing you here. And we're glad to have you as a part of PJNET. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, Mark. God bless. And beautiful studio, man. Getting better all the time.
It's getting better all the time. Thank you, sir. And we'll have more surprises next week. I promise.
Good.
All right, folks. Always good to have Refugee with us. I kind of gave you the update during the break, or I should say lapse of memory of Refugee. But nonetheless, we are going to be up all night. and we will be up all day tomorrow. We will be up all day Tuesday, Monday night, and so forth, gearing up for Wednesday. We will be on the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama, working on exactly what Refugee was just referring to, education. And we've got some hope there. We've got a slimmer, and so we're looking forward to that. And so we will turn things over to Hazards 4, and he'll play the tunes, and we look forward to seeing you right here on PJNet Live tomorrow night.